When I was going to seminary, way back in the 1970s, the Vietnam War was raging far away from most of us, but sparked a big political conflict at home as well. There were people on both sides of the debate on whether or not this war was just and whether or not we should be involved in it. Want to guess where I was on this debate? You're probably wrong. My father was military, and I was trying to get into the Air Force Academy. I was more than fine with the idea of serving my country. That changed at the altar, however, when I gave my life to Christ. At the time, it wasn't so much that my politics had changed as that the whole direction of my life had changed. In the Gospel of Luke, there is a moment when Jesus was asked, "Is it right for us to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" That was a loaded question, asked by some spies for the priests and scribes. They were trying to trick Jesus into saying something politically incorrect either way. It didn't happen. But imagine that Jesus had gathered his disciples to get some campaign advice from them about what he should say. Okay, guys, what do you think? Simon, you go first. Jesus, you know my view on this. I am a zealot. I oppose everything the Romans stand for. The Romans are evil. They worship false gods. They are cruel. They have occupied our land, and they conscript people to do their bidding, forcing them to carry their pack for a mile. For the smallest of offenses, they often impose the death sentence. We should never pay taxes to them. They are our oppressor. And moreover, we should resist and do everything we can to drive them out of our country by force. I see. Well, James and John, what do you think? You know us, Lord. We believe in you. And we think you should just call down fire and brimstone on the heads of anyone who stands in our way or will not help us to establish your kingdom. They deserve it. And you, Matthew? Well, Lord, you know I was a tax collector once, so I don't think it is wise to not pay your taxes. I have seen what they do to people who don't. And besides, they really have done some good things. They employed a lot of people, for instance, to build this temple, and they built roads, and their army keeps all the other armies far away from us. Peace is a good thing, right? So yeah, I don't support everything they are doing, but we should go ahead and pay our taxes anyway. It is better that way, isn't it? And right after that, I can imagine that the whole meeting fell apart into a shouting match and a brawl. Even Jesus' own disciples were not on the same page on this subject, let alone the nation of Israel. Discussing religion and politics, both then and now, is a volatile mixture, guaranteed to put people at each other's throats. That was their plan, of course, to involve Jesus in a volatile situation. It was a simple binary question, yes or no. They wanted Jesus to say the wrong thing, and really either yes or no would have been the wrong thing and had the same effect. What Jesus did, however, was exactly what they asked him to do that day. As always, he taught what was right, and he taught all those present the way of God. "Show me a denarius," Jesus told them. That was the very coin they had to use to pay the tribute tax to the Romans. The Romans would accept nothing else. Meanwhile, in the temple, the coin was forbidden because on one side of that coin, it had Caesar's image, and on the other side, an image of the emperor's mother, Livia, who was considered to be the incarnation of the goddess Pax, or peace. To use this coin for paying the temple tax was blasphemy. Hence the reason for the money changers on the temple grounds. So they fetched Jesus a coin, or maybe just pulled it from their own money pouch, and showed it to him. "Whose image and inscription are on it?" Jesus asked them. And they knew, of course, that it bore the image of Caesar. Sheepishly, they told him so. Well then, Jesus said, give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. Neither yes or no. But clearly this was the best answer ever to the question of mixing politics with religion. As one person put it, the lesson was this: the money belongs to Caesar, but you belong to God. Let the world have its coins, but let God have your life. To get the relationship between politics and religion correct, the first thing we always need to realize, I think, is that God is never on our side. In the book of Joshua, chapter 5, there was a moment as Joshua was leading their army toward Jericho when he came face to face with a man, or perhaps an angel, suddenly standing there in front of him with his sword drawn. Are you for us or for our enemies? Joshua asked him. Neither, he replied, but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. Then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked him, what message does my Lord have for his servant? The commander of the Lord's army replied, take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy. And Joshua did so. Thereafter, Joshua received from him new orders from God, not to just go blindly attacking, but to trust in the Lord and march around the city for 6 days and then sound the trumpet. And, well, you know the rest. The walls of Jericho came a-tumbling down. God is not there to do our bidding. The real question is always whether we are there on God's side and ready to do things God's way. We don't get to invite God to join our side, but God is always inviting us to be on his side. And make no mistake, God always has his own side, and very often it is none of the above when it comes to those yes or no answers that we may get asked. Isn't it amazing that Jesus had a zealot and a former tax collector among his disciples, and yet somehow he brought both of them together on God's side? Talk about loving one another. If they could learn how to do that, then why can't we get beyond all the labels and do the same thing? No time or place has been completely free from political turmoil, but those are really things that belong to Caesar. We belong to God, and therefore every choice we make must be to join God's side. In the world of power and politics, the question is usually, are you for us or for our enemies? But the best answer we can ever give to that question is neither. I am a servant of God and no other. The best leaders always know this. In 1865, the long and bloody Civil War was coming to an end, and in his second inaugural address, Abraham Lincoln seemed to be reaching for something that could reunite the war-torn nation. Considering this, Lincoln reminded them all, both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other. It may seem strange that any men should dare to ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces, but let us judge not, that we be not judged. The prayers of both could not be answered. That of neither has been answered fully. The Almighty has his own purposes. That is exactly what Jesus was saying too. His answer is not about the separation of church and state. His answer is about giving to both only what is theirs by right or authority, and never forgetting that you belong first and foremost to God. I used to say, and still do, I love my country so much that I will only support her when she is on God's side, and always oppose her when she is not. I owe both my country and my Lord nothing less than that. However, I'm also just barely humble enough to admit that sometimes I don't know which side is which. When in doubt, I look to God to help me sort it out. Faith and politics really do mix, but only when our sincere desire is to get our marching orders from God. The Almighty always has his own purposes in every moment and every situation. As we look to this season of political contest and political turmoil, our response should always be to trust in the Lord, give to Caesar what he wants, but never more than he deserves, and give ourselves and our true loyalties always and forever to the Lord our God. Be safe, and God bless you.